Hi, welcome back to another episode of Into the Valley, where today we will be looking back on Charlton's trip to Vicarage Road and a 1-1 draw taking away a point. In the grand scheme, brilliant result.
Yeah.
What did you think of the kind of performance?
I thought, to be fair, that game was a really good one to watch. I think if you're a neutral watching that game, you're thinking, this is a decent spectacle, because actually there was end to end. You had the crossbar got hit about 3 or 4 times during that game, both sides. And also both teams were going for it. It wasn't like one of those where it looked cagey. They were sort of the game was quite stretched a lot of the time. And on top of that, you've got players like Irukunda who ran his socks off all game and made it really difficult for us. But then on our side, we had Campbell had a good game, again breaking the lines, things like that. So I think it was an entertaining game, and I think a draw in the balance of the play, chances, things like that. I think they had a lot more shots than us overall, but we actually had some quality chances in that game. So I think the draw was probably fair. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I think pretty similar, to be honest. I think it was I thought, especially on the counter, were extremely dangerous. You could tell quality of players. You can see kind of where their season goes towards things in regards to, I think on their day, we've said there's such a almost like Marmite team in regards to, you sometimes get a good performance, you sometimes don't. But I think when they're on form, you can see they've got some really, really talented players. But I thought we played our game very well as well.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
So yeah, I thought it was on the balance of things, 1-1 I think seemed fair.
Yeah.
Equally as well, if either team had picked up the win, I kind of think there would be little to kind of argue about.
Yeah.
I think they've got, when I talk about players as well, I mean, Irukunda and Loser as well. I'd be very surprised if they're playing there next year, because I think they're very, very talented, especially Loser in the midfield. He's a class act, isn't
really
he?
quality operator, and I think like their link up for their goal was epic, because I mean the through ball was really, really nice, and then the finish from Irukunda. But Irukunda, I was like sort of watching him, and I know I see him pop up quite regularly with goals, and I'm always thinking like, who's this guy? I had a little look at him, and he was signed from Bayern, so it's like, okay, they've clearly seen something in him. He didn't get any game time for them, but clearly Watford thought we'll take a punt, and it's paid off, because he is a really dangerous player. And he made our life so difficult at the back, stretched us multiple times, and his, like I say, his finish for the goal was really, really tidy. So.
Well, and as you say as well, I thought it was quite an interesting, relatively enjoyable watch.
Yeah,
It was a game, and I thought, before we go into it too much, I thought a really interesting one. I saw a stat that popped up on X when I was looking across, and there's only 3 times this season that a team have faced more than 30 shots. Every single time it's Charlton.
Yeah.
2 of those games we've won, and another one we've drawn.
Was it Borough and...
I think it was Ipswich Borough in the game the game yesterday.
Watford.
Yeah. And it does kind of bring up that argument, doesn't it, of is it luck and is it fortune? Because quite often we will have 20-plus shots against us.
Yeah.
But in a lot of those games, we're taking points, we're winning. Yes, there'll be like the Southampton games where we get absolutely turned over, but... It's an interesting one, isn't it?
I think when you look at the shots that we sort of come up against, a lot of those shots do come from like edge of the box. We do put a lot of men sort of on the edge of our box a lot of the time, so it does block a lot of those sort of shots that maybe are pot shots, I would say. And you only have to look at like the big chances in the games. Like I think full-time whistle, we had the 2 big chances in the game, so we do create quality of chances a lot of the time, but they're few and far between. We don't create a huge amount of them, whereas I think sometimes when we come up against teams who just pepper us all game, we have to be so solid at the back, otherwise we implode a little bit, like we did probably against Southampton and a few others this season.
Well, I think there will always be those games where a lot of stuff that's kind of happening against us does just...
Stoke was one of those.
Yeah, hit the back of the net. It's one of those. But in a law of averages, we seem to have nailed down the fact that, yes, we can take that pressure, we can absorb it, and then we can take that kind of one chance if needed, whatever it might be. But yes, it's a very interesting one, because, as I say, it clearly is a tactic in there.
I do think as well, though, a lot of the reason why we sort of we fall short in terms of like shots versus the other team, and we seem to concede a lot of shots ourselves, is that we do have a bit of a hole in the middle of the park, which I think we need to address it in the summer. Because I think what you'll find is if we start to get a bit more creative in the midfield, all of a sudden we get more possession, and then we see actually we can keep the ball longer. We don't have as many shots against us. So that's probably something they're going to address over the summer. I hope so, because that will be something that will sort of limit those shots, because that isn't massively sustainable. Because there's going to be times where our defence does lapse, and that's when we do concede.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, going into the game then, starting lineup wise, we had the 2 changes. So we had Campbell coming in, and we also had Connor Cody stepping into midfield for Coventry. First half, I thought it was a really quite, just an enjoyable watch. They definitely, you could tell, especially on the counter, as say they were going to be dangerous. The players we've already discussed, the boy on the left-hand side, which I'm not even going to try and pronounce his name. But yeah, I thought they definitely were a team we had to be wary of. But I feel like we did also impose ourselves on the game. And I thought it seemed like the first half, our game plan was TC as an outlet. I don't think we had too much away from that. But TC, especially on his running game, end products, we always know there's a good discussion around that. But I thought he was getting in dangerously. And quite interesting, the first half, I listened to the Watford comms.
Okay, yeah.
And it was quite interesting, because I think we've discussed this quite a few times, where we can be extremely critical of TC. They were actually incredibly complimentary, saying that if we were going to cause any problems, it was coming through him. Their players were struggling to kind of deal with him. And I suppose it does open your eyes to another side of it. And I think even when we're looking long-term and the future, the worries we have about TC and whether he is the right person, it does scream about the fact that we need that pacey outlet. Because I think when we don't have TC, no matter what kind of performance he's putting in, a lot of the time we do miss that pace element of it.
I think we know that even when he's not on his game, and like you've mentioned it, like his end product, and that has been something that we've criticised him for quite regularly this year. Even when he's not producing the end product, he still provides the danger and, like you said, the outlet. Like he gives us that sort of option to just play a ball down the line, let him run for it. He's got that raw pace. And unfortunately, a lot of the time, it's that little touch that he gets wrong, or he gets crowded out and that sort of thing, or bullied a little bit. We've said all along, like, we hope that part of his game improves, because if he could just get that bit nailed down, he all of a sudden becomes a really, really dangerous threat. But let's give him some credit this game, because at the end of the day, he put in a few dangerous crosses, and actually they're the sort of where he just beat his man and just whipped the ball in. And on another day, we get on the end of a couple of those, and then we're saying, oh, he's had a really good game. So, yeah, he did put in a shift.
And there were some pretty big chances in that first half. Once again, it's always really difficult to get these in kind of chronological order. But for the Charlton side of things, we had the Greg Doherty hitting the post. We had another one where it was crossed in, and I think it was Sonny Carey got on the end of it.
Yeah.
They were pretty good chances.
I think the Doherty one was like very instinctive, and I think like the ball sort of pinballed around in the box a little bit, and he's managed to get his head on it, just not quite direct it into the goal. And obviously it's really unlucky because it was plumb on the post, but and there was no one obviously for the rebound. But that obviously was a big chance. And like you said, then you had the other Carey one, which I think was
a bit
fizzed.
It was fizzed in, and I'm not 100% sure he knew he was going to get to it.
Yeah, you can't really criticise him for that too much.
Yeah, and then we had the other side of things. I think we can pretty much sum up that game. If they were going to get a chance, it seemed that Aaron Condon was going to be the person who had it. We had a really, really lazy kind of mind lapse from TC, handing the ball over to them, and he's got raw pace, got in behind Amari Bell, and Mannion, and I think we can say this to all extreme, the one we want to go on to later in more detail, but with some just incredibly good saves, and that especially that Irukunda chance where he got in behind. Well, because it was a sensational save.
Irakunda's got a fizz of a shot as well. Like, he does lever the ball when he hits it. Like you said, like, he got a really good hand to it. Obviously, put it around the post, and I think Mannion turned into prime Buffon. he was played out of his skin.
I think in the game, as I say, it was 9 saves. I think he made, and a lot of those were really
big
good saves, big saves.
They were.
But yeah, it felt like a game that could go either way. I think we had to be respectful of what Watford were doing, but I think actually our game plan, it was probably seeing us play in that more defensive of the two teams,
Mm.
but actually doing it in quite an effective way and having a bit more on the counter, a bit more bite about us. And it was quite nice to see, albeit not a complete performance. It was definitely on the more positive light in comparison to some of the ones we've maybe had discussions about recently, where I don't feel at any stage I felt this team hasn't turned up today.
No, you could say for most of the side, pretty much every player on that pitch, you could say they put in a really good shift. And also, I think Watford are no mugs. Like, they are a tough side to come up against, and especially away from home for us. They are up the top of the sort of table for a reason. Like, they are a solid side. And you've already sort of mentioned a few of their quality players, but they've midfield in particular. Loser runs the show in the middle of the park, and we sort of saw that actually in the game. And probably that sort of player is what we're desperately missing at the moment. Somebody that just pulls the strings in the middle, because he ultimately was the difference for them in terms of playing the ball through for the goal. And really, like, ours came from the long throw, didn't it? So we'll obviously go on to the goal in a sec, but
it seems like pretty much 90% of our goals come from
they do seem to be.
As I say, it's effective, and we found it new with Harry Clark.
Yeah,
we seem to have found a really effective kind of rocket arms, which, it's to say,
it's a great weapon. It's a great weapon to have, and like in this sort of era of football, that seems to be quite a strong tactic for a lot of sides now, because it does create chaos. And I don't know, may as well go on to that goal now. I think Ramsey got the flick on. It sort of took another little sort of touch off for their defender. And then Godden's obviously done what he
hasn't just done what he's good at. It is sensational.
Yeah.
Because that second half, when we actually look at it, I think it started, and actually Watford had a reasonably good, I can't remember which one it was, but had a reasonably good chance, and I felt they were quite dangerous.
Starting to get on top, weren't they?
Starting to get on top, and I think what we've discussed so many times is that's the point where we need what Nathan Jones calls the game changers to come on and do exactly that. And I don't think you could get much quicker. But my God, if it highlights what we've been missing all season, when you get that one chance, and we've seen your Lee Burns, we've seen lots of different players who have missed those chances, not taken advantage. And it's a goal that,
it's purely technique, isn't it? I think that is what it is.
Do you know, it just shows how much of a raw quality striker he is, because I don't think any of that is him thinking. That is
no, it's instinctive.
That is instinctive, natural ability. And I could not be happier as well, because you could tell in his celebrations how desperate he was.
Well, it's his first championship goal for Charlton, isn't it? And we know he's scored bags of goals in the championship in the past. Like, he's always been that goal scorer, that real sort of sniffer dog is obviously his nickname. That is what he does. Like, he is technically a brilliant striker, and we saw it throughout in League One. He was obviously our top scorer in League One. But also crucial moments in games, he's always there to pop up. And I think in his post-match, I saw, like, he said, like, he missed quite a good chance in the last game, previous game. And he said, and then I think the interviewer was like, "Oh, do they get to you when you miss a chance?" And he's like, "No, because I know eventually one's coming, and he will take it."
I think that's a sign of a good striker,
yeah.
Because I think a lot of it can be that mentality, and he doesn't seem like someone who. I think it comes with being the experience.
I was just about to say that it's the sign of a seasoned striker, somebody that actually has been in the game a long time and actually doesn't thrash at things. He knows he's going to get a lot of chances in the space of 90 minutes, but he was only on the pitch for half an hour, and he still managed to pop up. So
I think he was only on the pitch 20 seconds when he popped up.
Well, yeah, he literally just came on, but like he is the sort of player that we've missed quite badly this year, I think, and we can comfortably say that, because our goal scoring tally from up top is pretty weak.
Do you think if we had a fully fit Matty Godden this season that it would
be higher up the league? Yeah, I do think so. And I wonder whether we'll see more of him next season, because I don't know what contract situation he's in now. I'm not sure if we've got him for another year.
I have a feeling it's one more year.
Yeah, so to be honest, if it's another year, I still think he's got plenty in the tank. Like, I think he'll do a job.
As a potentially, whether he's a starter, it depends on what the summer business does. But as absolute worst case scenario rotation and bringing in on the right games, and what we've seen so far this season, there are so many different styles of teams in the Championship, and sometimes you need a Matty Godden, and sometimes, yes, you need a different calibre of player. But yeah, no, I just, as I say, couldn't be happier for him. And his chant is one of my favourites. I mean,
well,
that will be ringing through my ears, and I'll be humming it the whole week at work. It just brings me a lot of joy.
It is a beautiful chant, but also it was just nice to see like his goal was getting sort of shown around X quite a lot after the game, and it was sort of like in the goal of the week sort of montage and stuff. So it just shows that he's still got that quality, and like we know he's got that quality. We see it so often.
And talking of, I mean, it's an ex-Charlton player with a clip running the rounds, but have you seen the Thierry Small?
Yeah, I think I've seen a few Charlton fans a little bit smug about that one. That was a horror show,
especially after his celebrations against us. It was one of my favourite things I've seen in a while. So I can just rotate between the Godden goal and Thierry Small's own goal, and it will bring a big smile to my face.
Pretty
this week.
Disgusting that was actually. Yeah.
It was a proper own goal, wasn't it?
It was one that you'd see on Sunday League, actually.
Anyone who hasn't seen it,
go check it out.
Go check it out because it'll bring a big smile to you. But so the goal goes in. I felt like at that point we definitely started to drop in deep, and it was kind of I wouldn't say completely attack versus defence. We had chances. Rankin Costello obviously came on. He had his big chance. I mean, I've never seen a more fish out of water running towards goal.
The thing is, it sort of dropped to him in like a sort of all of a sudden it opened up, didn't it? And it was a strange one because he just beelined for the goal, and then as he's gone to hit it, he's sort of fallen. So
he's fallen, but I think that all comes from his final touch before he goes to the shot.
Last touch was poor.
His last touch was poor. He looked like he was running in like treacle when he was running towards goal. And we know like pace isn't going to be.
No,
I think what we know from that is he's not going to be our number 10.
But he's like more of the creative midfielder in certain sense of dropping a little bit deeper and playing the little the free balls and stuff like that. So I think he was out of his comfort zone there a little bit, and it showed.
To see him getting in the position though, but it was a moment where I think if that goal goes in, that is probably night in regards.
And someone that's a natural sort of attacking midfielder and gets in, like Carey for example, if he's in there, you'd expect him to tuck it. So maybe unfortunate who it fell to, but like you said, he's still getting in those positions, and actually the reason he came on was to give us that sort of bit more impetus in the middle, so it worked.
And I don't know if it was before or after the goal. We had Kunda hit the bar from a long-range shot.
Good effort.
Nicely caught it well. But then the moment comes. It felt like, as I say, they were definitely pushing. I felt it was a game that had 1-1 probably all over it. I think once we scored, I didn't feel confident we'd keep them out all day. The ball from Loser in the midfield, it's beautiful. It's left foot outside of the boot.
Weighted perfectly.
But it was weighted perfectly, but Kunda took it quite wide.
Yeah.
Had the pace on Amari Bell, who looked absolutely knackered at that point. I think the international game and going into the two games we've had over the Easter weekend, his legs, he looked leggy today. But he still had a lot to do when he pulled his leg back for the shot. And it is a brilliant shot. And I think Mannion was on such good form in that game. There must have been a bit in him that thought, I've got to really... Well, but I think from Kunda, there probably was I've got to put my foot through this right in the right kind of area.
Yeah.
There's no bad keeping there because it's a beautiful. Like when you watch it back, it's a proper strike. It's
and the angle, because it's not an easy angle to.
He gets a lot of power on it.
Yeah, he does. And like before, Manu can even get down to the ball. It's in the back of the net. Like he's fizzed it in there. So fair play to him. And actually, Kunda, sort of like we've mentioned him already, but he was really a thorn in our side in that game. And actually, for a player to make Amari Bell look like a bit of a slug, you are rapid. Like because Amari Bell's not slow.
No. And he's quite good with the physical side of it. So no, I agree.
Yeah.
Celebration?
Yeah, I rate it, to be fair. It's a bit of a rattle for Charlton fans watching it, but anyone who can do a backflip and then like a little Michael Jackson dance, fair play.
Yeah, take your cap off to him, and so the goal goes in. I felt we were probably happy to take the point at that point. I felt like they kind of pressed us a little bit. I felt it kind of felt like we were going to go backs up against the wall. But then as the game kind of got into the latter stages, I thought we had little spells in it. They probably had the majority of it. We had little spells, but it did obviously naturally kind of end its course. Before it did, though, we had the strike that hit Cody square in the face, and I haven't seen a replay of it since.
They didn't.
On the stream, they wouldn't allow it, and that's always when you know it's bad. But there was one moment after the shot because their player was furious because I think they felt Cody had gone down with his experience and was playing the dirty. And I don't know if you saw it, but he booted the ball. It went out the stadium.
Yeah. I heard him say that their ball had been booted out, but
they took one little clip to Cody, and you could see he
Yeah.
was completely knocked
Yeah,
out,
yeah.
and then they didn't show anything else again.
I think obviously we've seen since that he's come out of hospital and he seems to be all right. So
be
he'll
out for a few
yeah, I
games.
was gonna say
I can't remember.
concussion protocols a couple of games usually
Yeah,
at least.
I think it's about 10 days.
Yeah.
After maybe.
So he'll probably be out for the next couple, maybe.
Yeah.
To be fair, it was nice to see him come back in because he has actually, since he's come into us, he's been quite a pivotal player actually in terms of turning that middle of the park around.
And not as the player we'd expect in regards to the fact he's been on kind of holding centre mid. And what I do notice when he's on even though he does still do a lot of the long ball, I notice sometimes a lot of our central midfield players pick it up and take a touch forward and then take a touch and then lump it.
Yeah.
I noticed a lot of the time actually he tries to play the quick one down the channel.
Yeah.
And especially when we're playing players like TC, it's actually quite dangerous.
Yeah, it is.
And I think that's where sometimes when we talk about our style of play, and I think Cody probably sums it up beautifully, is that I don't think all of our problems are always with our style of play in regards to the negative side, because I know there is a lot of talk out there in regards to how negative we are, how defensive we are. And look, don't get me wrong, we 100% are a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But I think we don't also play the effective style of our style of football.
Yeah.
And I think when you look at players like Cody, you can see how actually with a quick ball down the line, more effective counter. And I think a great example of that are teams like Millwall.
Yeah.
They're statistically, a lot of the time, not high possession. They're quite direct, but they do it in an incredibly effective way with your kind of, is it Aziz or Zaz?
Yeah, Aziz,
Who plays, and they've just got the quality of players there that make it a very effective style of football and a more enjoyable style of football.
It's also like moving the ball a bit quicker. We're very guilty, I think, this season of sort of just keeping hold of the ball for too long in that sort of just in front of the defence and not really looking for the pass forward. And I think if we're able to get a better quality of player in and start fizzing the ball a bit quicker through the lines, we'll start to see things change. That's one for the future, really. But yeah, no, Cody was out cold, and actually that's always concerning because you never quite know what's happened there in terms of how bad it is. But it seems, like I said, that he's out and he seems to be all right, which is good news.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think the point it happened, I think it's just as extra time.
It
kind of killed the game, didn't it? Yeah, there wasn't really much else there.
Yeah.
So that's the game over. As I say, I think a really, really important point for us.
Oh, massive,
when you look at the kind of results as well, you saw Pompey and Oxford with an absolute humdinger of a game.
2-2, wasn't it?
Yeah, 2-2 with
late goals.
Pompey having a red card very early on after scoring. But I think pretty much all the results.
It's all draws.
No one
it's
gained
just as it
like
is.
that.
So we basically just moved one game closer to safety, and nothing's really changed in terms of teams moving towards us or vice versa.
No. So. Well, let's move into the kind of positive negatives on the performance. We'll quickly start on the negative. I don't really feel there was too many people who had an absolutely terrible game. I think there was probably people we discussed. Chambers had moments, but I think we've probably still got the concerns and frustrations we've had.
He had a good strike, didn't he, in that sort of first half?
Good strike. He was the one who crossed the ball in, albeit it wasn't a great cross. It was kind of the deflections that took it onto Doherty for the header onto the post. I think, look, as I say, he does the job this season.
I think from what I've seen online, a lot of people are saying, he's filled that gap in, which is what we spoke about last week. He's done a job, but I don't think people want to see him there long term. And I think he's a loan, to be fair. He's going back to Liverpool afterwards, and like I say, he'll probably end up at a different club, obviously, once he's gone.
I thought another one who's maybe a bit uncharacteristic was Amari Bell, but I'm not. I think what we discussed beforehand is I don't see it as putting him in the negative side of things, because I think we know he's quite an injury-prone player.
Yeah.
He's played the international break. He's then come into the game on Friday, and then he's come in. I was quite surprised to see him today.
I think Nathan Jones said the reason that he actually started was he got a slightly earlier plane back than TC, but he's still just come back from Jamaica probably the day before.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
I think he just looked tired.
Yeah, and you can tell he's sort of played a lot of games and he's travelled a bit and stuff like that. So I thought
we might see Gillespie come in for that game.
Yeah, I did. Well, I saw him. He was getting warmed up on the bench, I think, when we went 1-1, and then we conceded. I think that changed Jones's plans, but yeah.
So I think Bell, Dykes is another one who I thought was pretty non-existent in that game.
I think the style of the play in that game, we were looking to play the ball a little bit more, especially down the line. So I think you found that Dykes was a little bit less effective because we weren't playing the long balls so much and things like that. But
once again, he has games where I think for his style of player, that he will go through games where he's a bit non-existent. But I don't think any of them we felt went into what we'd call a negative performance. But I think one who very, very much highlighted this side and starting to get a little bit, not concerning, but there definitely is, I don't know what it is, whether it's confidence or whatever, but it was the only negative we could come up with, and that was Sonny Carey. And I thought he had a really, really bad game this one. I think we've seen games where he's had little spits and spurt moments.
Yeah.
I thought overall he was really poor. And in a team that requires an attacking outlet, he has to take ball by the horns a little bit more. I thought there's loads of times he's just running the ball into nothing. He
Do you know what?
reeked of low confidence.
It's really frustrating because I had him down as like player of the season for quite a lot of the season actually, but I would say probably for the last 2-3 months he's really sort of tailed off. And actually, I think I've said before, like I think it's partly down to the fact that our creativity in the middle, he is the sole one to be relied on to sort of dribble the ball up the pitch, and I think sometimes he takes a bit of the weight of that on his shoulders, and he sort of feels like every time he gets the ball, he's got to try and do that. I think with the way he plays, I think he would do well to sort of release the ball a bit quicker sometimes when he sees those passes. There's been quite a few times this season where we've said like, oh, if he had just played that pass in.
I think his problem is because he's become this hero who scores last-minute winners,
bit of a maverick.
goals. Yeah, a bit of a maverick. I think sometimes he feels like he always has to take on
I agree.
in that same vein. And we've seen, loads of times this season, a good 3 or 4 times I could give you examples of where a pass would have mean we're in on goal and he's still taken either that shot or kept running.
But also that's fine if you're in good form and you're like actually beating your man and getting a good strike away. But actually, when you're doing that and you're off your game, that's when it becomes a bit of a problem, because all of a sudden you're going for that long range shot, but it's not quite coming off, and then you're trying to beat your man, but you're losing the ball or you're taking a poor touch. And we've seen that quite a bit recently, which does hinder us because it then gives possession straight back to the opposition, etc. So I think hopefully a little bit of a break over the summer, he'll come back and be like back to what he was.
Do you worry some of the dip in form also comes from a lack of competition? And we've seen this in other positions we've had across the pitch as well, that sometimes almost having that content of knowing that you haven't really got a direct replacement can make you a bit kind of complacent.
Well,
yourself.
Harvey Nibbs, I guess, was...
Well, Nibbs can't... Yeah. And we've seen, obviously, the last 2 games are lovely to see, and I think something we've probably overlooked a little bit, obviously being on the bench. Probably earlier than I think most people expected. I think most people thought he was going to be out for the rest of the season. But I do worry sometimes maybe that be the case, and when you're dropping out of form, actually him having been drawn out the squad might have helped him get that fire in the belly. And
he had that, didn't he? He got pulled out for a little while, and actually we saw him come back in. So I think the lack of competition is definitely probably a factor, because all of a sudden, like there's no choice. He's got to be playing week in, week out. Whereas if he's being rotated in and out, like you said, it maybe gives him a bit more fire in his belly to sort of like earn his place back in the team. Like I said, I hope he will sort of finish off the season, have a little break, and come back really strong. Because he's a really, really good asset for us. And like I said, I thought he was going to be player of the year this season, but I think Jones is going to win that hands down now. But
I think there's a very good chance. I think there's a few other players who maybe you could look at and say how important they've been. But I think it's a no-brainer, that, isn't it? Well, as I say, that's the only negative towards it, and I hope he does kind of turn things around. I'm not sure this season's going to be much change now. I think he's probably looking into the summer. But
he's still going to get a lot of... He'll sort of see the season out now. He'll be our main sort of attacking mid. So.
No, definitely. Well, let's move on to the positive performances. And I think, once again, as I say, there's a lot in there that kind of sat maybe on the slightly more positive or the slightly more negative, but right in that kind of middle ground. I think we feel there was a few that definitely stood out. Let's start on the one that just, as I say, we've kind of discussed probably most of the bits we need to, but Matty Godden. Goal scorer.
Just great to see him back, isn't it? Like, to be honest, like he must be gutted that he's been out for so long. Like he would have really loved to just impose himself on the Championship again, and really back where he belongs, because he really, let's be honest, he dropped down to a level that probably was still below. I mean, he could have easily stayed in the Championship. I
think he said, like, there was a few players, and I think there was Nathan Jones who said it, but in essence they didn't go to Charlton to play as a League One team.
No,
saw the potential of where they could go.
Well, Nathan Jones as a manager said the same, didn't he?
But I assume that also means he saw himself getting promoted with Charlton and then having kind of more years in the Championship with us.
Which is obviously what happened, but and he was a massive part in that as well. But now to actually get those games against the sort of clubs where he feels he belongs, like against your likes of Watfords and then obviously the bigger clubs in the league, to get goals, I think he will love to get a goal at the Valley before the season's out, and hopefully push on. Like I said, I think he could still be a massive player for us next season as well. But I mean, technically, you don't get too many better sort of seasoned strikers in that division now. Coventry was his big one, wasn't it? He had a lot of goals for them, and I know their fans love him as well. And you can see why clubs love him.
Oh, he's an incredibly likeable character.
Yeah, like really decent guy, but also just a brilliant professional. And he does exactly that. He was brought in to score goals, and he still will.
Well, I also don't think his game was just about the goals. I mean, he was harrying really well. He even created, I can't remember which chance it was, but harrying up on the defender.
It was the
I think it might have been the Costello one.
It was,
so I think he was more impactful than just his goals, and something that maybe goes quite underrated in his game. He's actually, especially for his age, quite a good kind of aggressive presser of the ball. And I think this season, and maybe even going into next season, where he is so dangerous, is that 60th minute coming on, we've said. I think that's probably where I actually prefer to see him, a bit like how we've sometimes said with TC, for example. I actually think that's where he could be most effective, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Well, he gives defenders something different to deal with, because we've got the likes of Addicks, for example, and Lieben, who are physical. They're the ones that are really bulky and sort of hard to deal with. But then you all of a sudden you've got Godden and you've got Kelman, to be fair, similar style players. They bring something different, breaking the lines, sort of being clever in the way they get the little finishes in the box and stuff like that. So he offers something really, really dangerous. And like you said, off the bench, he's really, really effective. And he showed it, obviously, in the Watford game. And like I said, I hope we'll see more of it down the line, because he's a really likeable player for us.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, let's move on from Godden then. We move to the next one, who I think we both felt umming and ahhing, but I think actually looking back over the game, definitely deserved to be in this, albeit there's still a few little bits and pieces in there. TC. And I think we've hit the nail on the head earlier in regards to the fact when I was listening to the comms, Watford highlighted him so much as that danger man. He did cause a lot of problems. Final product still...
Times it wasn't great.
And I also think the lapses in concentration, giving Irinkunda that chance. I think it's a side of our game that we've actually got rid of quite well. We do kind of lump the ball out. We don't give away too many silly chances. TC has been guilty of that an awful lot this season. And I do think it's a side of his game. I think those little moments of being almost so relaxed, so calm, he can make those little mistakes. But as I say, he was an outlet. He was aggressive in the way he was running. I mean, their right back, Petris. Was,
I think he had their right back on toast, to be fair. I mean, most of the time when he tried to beat him for pace, he did. The little times where he sort of broke the line, he had a couple where he was a little bit tentative, and that's where they managed to crowd him out. But he got a few good crosses in the box, and I think he did create some dangerous sort of opportunities for us. And I think they're the things that we just want to see more and more and more from him, is that he is able to be that danger man. He is an outlet. Whatever we think, he's an outlet. We do use him a lot to get the ball up the pitch.
And he's had some good running at certain I mean, he's run at some really quite talented wing-backs this year. And when he is on his game, especially on the running side, take away the final product, he can be so ruthlessly effective. And we've discussed how sometimes having an outlet like that means that he's doubled up, which creates space for another player. He can be really effective in that. As I say, the end product's an issue, and the consistency. If we can see that TC every week, and his consistency of kind of final product can just kind of increase just a little bit, I don't think many Charlton fans would be on his case.
I just love seeing the best part of him is when you see him front up a man, and he's got that guy, their defender sort of scurrying back a little bit, not quite knowing whether he's going to go left or right. That's where he's at his best, where he takes his man on. When he beats them, it's just that end product. We're still waiting for that sort of quality in there, but we've got to give him his due. He was an outlet for us in that game, and
I think we would have been very harsh not to put him in the positive, because I think when you look at that performance, you look at the highlights, you look at everything there.
He gave a lot
for
to
the
that
first half and the 60 minutes. He was a pretty integral part of us having an outlet and a positive impact on the game.
Also as well, we've already said, but Addicks wasn't a massive feature in that game. That's because we were playing the ball down the wings more. So naturally he had more of the ball, and he was dangerous.
And I think from there we saved the best till last, and saves are what he did, and it was an incredible performance. And we talked about in the last game, after his mistake, needing a performance kind of, this will be the one that, okay, if you have another bad performance, you might have Kaminsky kind of nipping at your ankles. But Will Mannion, I think the best Charlton goalkeeper performance I can
in a while,
kind of think of in a while. And I thought he kind of had everything on it, and but the shot stopping especially was just brilliant. And that even comes down to when he had powerful shots at him across goal. he was actually taking the ball in. He wasn't
Yeah,
he
yeah.
wasn't just parrying it out. I thought his distribution was better. But I genuinely
Do you think? I'm wondering, like, do you think he was quite fired up after that sort of clanger last week? Whether he was like, right, I'm going to prove that I am good enough. I want to really show people what I'm made of. And he, to be fair, that shows immense character to come back, because some goalkeepers, you've seen it with quite a few actually. Once they make a couple of blunders, they just completely melt. And also, like, you've seen some goalkeepers' careers almost end because they've just like, you know, you see
carry us in the
yeah,
Champions
yeah,
League final.
yeah. But
Quite famous one.
yeah, but it's just one of those where we had that. Funny enough, we brought that debate up last week as well, whether Kaminsky or Mannion, you know, which one.
I thought an interesting one with that. Kaminsky wasn't on the bench.
No, I'm wondering if he's probably got his back up a little bit there. He's been dropped, and I think maybe you might.
I'd be very surprised if it was an injury or a big problem in the background as
Yeah.
to why. Because I don't think not making the bench to me has to be injury or problem.
You think so?
I'd be
You think
surprised
so?
if it's a problem in
Yeah.
regards to he seems quite a professional.
Level-headed,
but yeah.
yeah, and especially I think he's got quite a good relationship with Jones. He's managed under him before, but
I just don't see it at the moment. Mannion has got that.
I think he's clinched that number one.
Yeah, I
shirt
think where
for a
we've
while.
talked about, I think he's pretty definite. Then he had that mistake, but that for me is the best goalkeeping performance. I say I can think of in a while, definitely of this season.
But also commanding in the box as well, not even only the saves, because he was brilliant shot stopping in that game, but he was really, really solid at coming out and claiming the ball, which is that is a big part of being a goalkeeper, in my opinion, that you can really take the pressure off the back line in terms of coming out and claiming things. So, yeah, all round the performance was brilliant, but just to come back from the sort of really poor performance he had in the previous game.
And performances like that, and if there's many more, I've always sat in the camp of, I think he was kind of fighting between him and Maynard Brewer last season.
Yeah.
This season between him and Kaminsky, which we weren't necessarily expecting, but he's probably not the answer long term. But it wouldn't take too many more performances like that for me to think. And do you know what? With us, we've discussed at the beginning of this episode how shots against us is predominantly quite high. I think predominantly at this level, you very rarely get somebody's distribution and the best shot stopper, because if they are, we've said before, they're playing at a higher level.
Yeah.
A shot stopper is much more important to us, commanding in the air, all of those factors. And I think he's starting to show that actually he's probably got a lot of the traits of pretty much everything we'd be looking for in a keeper. And as I say, at the moment, these performances blowing out the park of anything that probably Kaminsky's maybe even offered all season.
Well, yeah, and I think you have to select players on meritocracy. So if you are playing to a high level, you can't really be dropped, because at the end of the day, like, you are putting in the performances and doing what we need you to do. So, yeah, we always say long may it continue, but he could really cement that number one jersey, and all of a sudden, Kaminsky becomes number two, and then who knows? But I'm more than happy for him to stay in there for a while if he's going to put in those sort of performances. So, yeah, fair play to him. He showed character big time.
Yeah, definitely. Well, there we are. That rounds up the game nicely. So let's move on from there, onwards and upwards. We've got the game coming up on Saturday, and that is Preston at home. 3 p.m. kickoff. A team who, probably 3 or 4 months ago, you'd be looking at this being a really tight game, promotion pushing almost territory. An almighty fall off. Last 5 games.
Off a cliff.
3-0 loss to Coventry, 2-0 loss to Norwich, 3-1 win against Stoke, and then a 2-2 draw with Leicester and a 1-1 draw with QPR. I think they've picked up a little bit more recently, I think, after a really rotten run of form.
I think we joked about them sort of being in the relegation battle, didn't we, last couple of weeks? But I think obviously they're not, like, they're safe. But
they are the definition of a team on the beach now, because they're 54. They're complete bang mid-table. 12 points off playoffs, 12 points above relegation. They are, and I'm hoping Thierry Small can give us another one of his beautiful going goals, because I think this has got to be the game where any of our fans that are umming and ahhing about safety, which I've amazingly, when I look at some of the backlash I got online of being so confident towards things, I think it maybe needs that one more win to just kind of stop that side of the fan base.
Doubters,
because there is still doubters.
There are, and to be fair, I think as Charlton fans, we do have to err on the side of caution, because
we are Charlton,
exactly, and we know that nothing is in concrete. Like, weirder things have happened, but we are now at the stage where one more win pretty much guarantees it. And wouldn't it be nice to get that at the Valley on Saturday? Just give us a few games, because we've spoken about how it would be nice to have a few games where there's a little bit of pressure off. All of a sudden, we can let the shackles off a little bit, maybe try a few things out.
I think it'd be really important to experiment.
Because there's not many times you get that opportunity, especially in a league season where every game is a massive battle. But all of a sudden, like I said, the shackles come off a little bit, and you maybe could look at your Fullers. You could look at bringing in players that are maybe looking down the line for next season and experimenting with a few different formations, bit tactically, sort of go for something a bit different. But we have to get those wins first, or that win. So Preston at home is not an easy game, although they are on the beach, like you said, and they are sort of a team that have probably gone off the rails badly. They've still got some quality in there, and like they aren't no mugs. I think they got that Oz Majic guy up front, who's a bit of a danger man.
Controversial.
Yeah. He's a bit of he reminds me a bit of Mitrovic, like that sort of bully boy.
He's bully boy.
Gets sent off quite regularly.
Gets sent off, very controversial character, but he is a talent.
He scores goals.
He scores goals, and he's there's definitely some danger in there. We know with Thierry Small as well, for all we laugh and joke, there is danger.
He's a good player.
Yeah, danger there towards.
And then I think in the middle of the park they got some pretty good.
I just think
pots, isn't it?
I think when we look at our remaining fixtures, I think the Preston and Sheffield Wednesday games seem the ones,
standouts.
if we're looking at as the easier opportunities, and that's not to say they're easy games, but to see the easier opportunities for us to pick up the points.
Well, I saw Sheffield Wednesday have they leveled the record for the longest run of no wins. I think they're on 36 games without a win. So that game has got to be earmarked as a absolute minimum point, but you'd fully expect the 3. That will be that game that gets us across the line. But if we can do it before that against Preston, then that will just really be nice, because nobody enjoys that sort of moment where you think you're safe, but there's always
it's
that
mathematical,
jeopardy.
isn't it? So that is like, and I understand when I have the confidence towards safety. I'm not saying there's a world where it can't happen at all. I just don't see it, and I'm more than confident enough, and that's where I feel confident in saying it.
Yeah.
Let's look at the league table quickly. So we got ourselves in 18th, which seems like we're pretty locked in at the moment. 8 points above the relegation. You've got Leicester and Oxford both sitting in there now on 41, Portsmouth on 42. You've then kind of got that jump up to West Brom and Blackburn, 45, 47. For me, 5 games to go, 8 points clear.
I think a couple of weeks ago we did like a rundown, and we have the remaining fixtures for each team, and I still look at like Portsmouth.
Portsmouth have got
They've got a horrible run.
I think it's like Borough, Coventry.
That's why that Oxford game at the weekend was so important for them, actually, because they didn't even get anything there. So it's like looking at those teams they've got coming up.
Got to, as I say, Portsmouth, Leicester, and Oxford. They're the ones who you're looking at as in real trouble.
Yeah.
You've got to, as I say, and this is where I really struggle to see anything but positivity. Portsmouth have got a 7-point swing us over the course of 5 games.
Yeah.
With a really tough run. In Leicester, who don't seem to be able to win.
They can't buy a win.
Can't buy a win at the moment. And even Oxford, once again, but you've got to think Oxford are going to turn an 8-point deficit, and that's if we lose every single game.
Yeah.
I've seen people saying 48, 49 is not going to be enough to stay up.
Yeah.
For me, I think it will.
Yeah,
I
think it might be.
I don't think I see all 3 of those teams hitting that marker.
If it's not, it's literally like 50 will be definitely enough, I think, this season. Been a weird season though. I've been looking at like the top and the bottom, but even the top, no one seems to want second place. Like I think we've done enough this season and got enough crucial points against bigger teams as well. It's funny how we've managed to sort of not necessarily win those games. Like we lost 3-0 to Portsmouth, didn't we? But then we went and beat Ipswich 3-0.
We've had a bizarre season.
It has been a strange
and
one.
it's something we're going to, I think at the end of the season, we're actually going to do a review over how the whole season's gone. But yeah, it's been an ups and downs. It's been a very Charlton season, but
I've enjoyed it though.
Yeah, I was going to say so far it's been a fun one. I think going into this final bit, as I say, it'd be nice to get that mathematical side.
Yeah.
The interesting one, and we did put a tweet out, didn't we, on X?
Yeah.
And I'll put it up on the screen now. But it's amazing. It still amazes me to this moment how many people still, as I say, and I know we've just kind of gone over it there, but how many people are still worried that relegation...
I think the camp seems to be split. We did a little poll a few weeks ago. It was 50-50.
And I think this time it's about 54-46. I think from
still
memory.
close.
It's very close to being 8 points clear with 5 games to go.
I think it
makes me just think how Charlton have damaged their fans.
I was going to say, like, we've been burnt too many times that actually people are so scared to put their colours to the mast. But I think both of us are pretty set that I think we're there. But
Well, I'll just have huge egg on my face if we don't, because I sit in
there's so many clips that could be cropped.
Yeah,
we could be in big trouble.
it worries me. I go to bed at night and just wake up with sweats. But
Yeah.
yeah, no. So yeah, no. Well, thank you very much for listening. We'll be back for the game, obviously for the Preston game. And yeah, we'll look forward to it, and we'll see you on the next one.